Angela, when I first started the inquiry, I didn't really know what it was about. I didn't understand it. I think it was because of the training that's like a final result that day, and with research, it's the nature of research that it's different. You don't have an outcome straight away. After the first few meetings, I enjoyed the meetings and everybody else had interesting things to say, but I didn't feel that I had anything to offer the inquiry. I couldn't really think of what I was going to do as part of my action plan, and then I decided to study my role as the SENCO and how I could improve that. I decided to write about a little boy who would be known as Mark, because I felt strongly that his story was something all too common in nurseries. He started our nursery just before his second birthday, and straight away we noticed his speech was very unclear. It was almost like his own language type of thing, not just the stammer or unclear speech. We thought there was probably more to it. But we left him to settle in the nursery for a couple of weeks, and then we decided to speak to his mum and ask how he was at home. She said that she could understand every word he said, he was fine, and she didn't have any concerns about him at all. So we carried on observing him, and then the next thing his mum got made redundant, so she took him away from the nursery, and he returned to our nursery just before his third birthday. He came back, and then it was even more evident that there was more problems, and his speech was still very unclear at times, but then he could recite things from the telly really clearly, and you could understand every word, but he wouldn't use as communication for speech, which was with his speech for communication, which was really concerning us. When we spoke to his mum about having him referred, she was a little bit upset, and it became really hard to speak to her, and she would use avoidance tactics like using a mobile phone every time she came to the nursery so that we couldn't speak to her. So obviously she was finding it really difficult, and then so were we. And then one day out of the blue we got a phone call from a speech therapist, and the speech therapist said he'd been referred, she thought by me, but I knew obviously it wasn't me and it was another nursery. And then it came to like that, he'd actually left that nursery shortly after he'd been referred. And when the speech therapist done the assessment, I mentioned to her that I felt it was more than just speech problems, and she agreed, and that he would need a referral to a paediatrician. After a lot of persuasion, his mum agreed to this, although she didn't agree with all what was in the report. And then we were really glad that she did agree to it. And then he left the nursery, which meant that he didn't have any of his needs put into place for when he goes to school. We didn't know when he went, he left the area, so it was just upsetting that he'd gone, and we felt like we'd failed. But then if I really think about it, it's more society and their viewpoints about nursery nurses that affect our confidence, so that we find it difficult to speak to parents about things that we really know. But because I've been part of the project, I'm thinking more now about it's us that have to speak up, it's us that have to do something about this and change society's views about our job, because we aren't people who just paint and change nappies all day.